When the train it left the station, oh, I looked him dead in the eye. When the train it left the station, I looked him in the eye.
Can I also ask you about some of the, research that I was doing and the website? You tell me what you're comfortable talking about or not. But when we're talking about women, African-American women's hair and girls, you talked about on your website, that's about as personal just like talking about sex.
Yes.
You talk about whatever you want or not want to talk about, but can you say a little bit more about that and that concept, please?
Yes. So you might know Chris Rock came out with a movie about hair.
Good hair. Yeah, it's great.
Hair, right? Several years ago now.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the first time that more of America outside of the Black community, right, started to have a greater awareness over all the intricacies and complex feelings about hair for Black people.
Yes.
Right. And so hair is, it just holds so much weight in the Black community because, from the time that Africans were brought to this country, it was something that was used to make a point that Black people were inferior. And so we had traditions for how to care for our hair and to celebrate different parts of our lives, whether we were married or single or maybe a partner had passed or things. And there were all these different hairstyles that were used to reflect that. And also it's a way of often for women to kind of connect and have bonding time together. So when Africans were brought here and then there was no time for adornment, right, and things like that, it was very hard when we didn't have like these different natural substances that we use to care for our hair. And on top of it, if we were being told that our hair was ugly and gross or, that we were savage for it. So in order to assimilate, and also to manage time, Black people started straightening their hair, which was a revolutionary and wonderful thing in some respects. But it gets coupled with sometimes, wanting to assimilate into white culture. So this, and then there are just all different layers of how that can play out for a person. So it doesn't mean that you don't want to be Black because you straighten your hair, right? I'm not like pointing fingers at people for that at all.
Sure.
Or if women wear weaves, it's like, or extensions. I just wanted to tell my particular story. And the interesting thing about choosing to do a project about hair is that whenever I say that I've done a project about this to another woman of African descent, whether she's Afro-Caribbean or African-American, she goes, oh, they immediately, there's this like acknowledgement. Like we know, oh yeah, okay. Like I'll get like, oh yeah, I have a lot of stories about that because we all have hair stories, So every woman, and also there are white women and also women of color of different backgrounds, South Asian, Latino, who similarly have had experiences, but it's particularly, there's something particular for women of African descent.
Sure.
Also just because we have these rich traditions around hairdoing,
Right. Amazing. Yeah. When I saw good hair, as a white guy and this takes a couple of hours to get it this good, by the way, it was very enlightening. I had no idea. And the time, energy, commitment that it takes was amazing. Yeah. Can you say a little bit more? I'm curious about the adornment, because it sounds like what you're saying is hair in different contexts, different ceremonies tells a different story.
Yeah, it does.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, for me studying this, which is why it's also taken so long, is that I've just enjoyed the research.
Yeah.
And so I'm still learning, that I don't know all the stories, but there are different braiding hairdos that signify different things, in different parts of Africa. So that's really interesting. And it's true, you know, I think we, in the Black community, we've always looked at hair as like an extension, another thing that we can use in a way to decorate ourselves, as opposed to like, let me just put it up in a ponytail, right? It's like, well, I can like curl it this way, and I could curl this side, and I could straighten that side, and I could braid the front, and I could twist the back. And it's like, and so the idea of weaving and history became kind of, they became like, this weaving became kind of a metaphor for me. The way that we weave our hair and the way that African Americans' history in this country has been a weaving, right? It's, you know, there's pain in there, and there's, you know, there's abuse, you know, and from the larger culture, but there's like this weaving story that's in there, in terms of our heritage being mixed heritage. You know, it's like anyone who's African American has mixed blood, you know, so it's like there's just an interesting thing around weaving and hair as a metaphor for our story in the Americas.
Right. That's really wonderful. Amazing. I'd be curious of what kind of adornment, whether, you know, maybe for a marriage ceremony or having a baby, were there different adornments? I don't know if you found that in your research.
I did. There's this amazing book called Africa Adorned, which is a photo book by these two different photographers, European photographers, and they really looked at adornment throughout different parts of Africa. And I'm still always reading it. It's like a coffee table book that I just always come to. But yeah, there are, you know, I don't even have them memorized. But that's the interesting thing. I feel like in America, we don't necessarily have the same type of hairdo that's used to represent a particular occasion. But it's interesting to see if you trace back and look at Africa, and of course that's a big continent, you know, but looking at different parts of Africa and seeing how maybe a particular hairstyle, or maybe that, you know, this type of clay mixed with a certain kind of oil wrapped in the hair at a certain time of year is used for a girl when she's going into courtship or something. It's like there are all these different, you know, and there's something that's just really nice about ritual to me, you know, and so I think that aspect speaks to me, just the aspect of like setting an intention around a particular time and a particular event. And I think I wanted to take that on myself and encourage young women to do the same for themselves. Like, maybe I want to mark this moment, whatever this moment is, and encourage young girls that they can mark a moment and they can choose to adorn themselves how they want to.
It's fantastic. And maybe this album can be part of that initiation ritual ceremony.
Exactly. So the way that I've been offering it is, you know, my ideal intention is that it's really a digital talisman for young women.
That's great.
So if they could have like their own little medicine pouch, their music medicine pouch of like things to help them stay motivated to owning their own beauty, that this would hopefully be one of those things they could use.